So look, this really comes down to what one's theory of change is. And it's about trying to home in on a theory of change that works. So here's where our theory of change gets a bit more ambitious. What we believe is that all of this stuff that we're trying to do in the emerging moderate flank, the end game of it is cultural transformation, and in fact, civilizational transformationalness. What do we think is the vector of that? Well, here's quite a bold way to describe it. Let's take the situation of government, politics, and elections. We have in power a really terrible anti-ecological government. What are the prospects for replacing that government with a better government? Well, they're not great, because although it is virtually certain now that this government will be thrown out with extreme prejudice within the next 2 years, and the probability is that the next prime minister will be Keir Starmer, Labour have said some good things about, for example, stopping new oil. But Labour's programme, if it came in as it stands, would absolutely by no means be enough to put us on the path that is necessary. Ultimately, we need a new political class. How do you get a new political class? Well, you either get it by revolution, or you get it by having an electorate that decides very differently from our current electorate. We judge that the chances of revolution are at present extremely low. So if we think about the relevance of electoral considerations, then obviously, as I say, we're not just talking about the next election. We have to be thinking about a more medium-term strategy, and ultimately a long-term strategy. People sometimes say to me, yes, but we don't have time. And you're right, we don't have time, but we also don't have a better idea. So we have to get honest. This is a marathon, not a sprint. There are going to be horrible consequences along the way. That is part of the truth that needs to be told. So ultimately, to get a new political class, a really appropriate way to put it is we need a new electorate. Now, what does that mean? I mean, that sounds like a kind of a joke. What it means is the electorate have to be transformed. Who are the electorate? Well, they're us, right? The citizenry have to be transformed. How do we transform the citizenry? Well, we believe that we transform the citizenry by doing exactly the kind of things that we've been speaking about, right? By having all these kind of micro interventions and changes and endeavors that ultimately will start to add up to something that works on a meso level and on a macro level. So ultimately, if we're going to get where we need to get, we need a new electorate, and we're going to get a new electorate by doing things differently in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our workplaces, our professions, our other institutions. And we're going to gradually change ourselves by doing in such a way that eventually, among other things, people will vote and act politically quite differently. That's our theory of change. And we think that it is a theory which is now more realistic than the theories which are typically used among the radical flank or among the old moderate flank, which does not have such bold theories of change at all. That's what it's ultimately about, macro scale change, but we don't get there in one fell swoop. We have to get there by a slower, more genuinely transformational route.